In October 2024, active hostilities continue in Ukraine. Russian troops are recording successes in the Zaporizhia direction, in the area of Kurakiv, Bagayavlenka, and other sections of the front. The situation is developing dynamically. Military experts analyze the possibilities of creating the Kurakov cauldron and predict further actions of both sides. Overview of key events as of October 30th and possible outcomes. As of October 30th, 2024, the military situation in Ukraine remains complex and tense. Active fighting continues in various directions, with Russian units recording tactical successes on the front line, leveling it along the Grushevataya beam. It is reported that small areas of forest belts and water bodies between the settlements of Staromaryevskaya and Levadnaya have come under the control of the Russian army. This advances Russia's position and improves its strategic position in the region, although it is a relatively minor success. Meanwhile, the main attention is drawn to the larger-scale developments on the line between Velikaya, Novosilovka, and Pokrovskoye. In the vicinity of the village of Shakhterskoye, Russian troops are expanding their zone of control, already occupying more than 66% of its territory. During the fighting, the southwestern outskirts of Yasnaya Polyana were also occupied. This is evidenced by published footage showing Russian soldiers installing the tricolor on the roof of one of the buildings in the area. This footage was used to update maps of the fighting, which confirms the strengthening of Russian positions in the area. In parallel, fighting continues for control over Novukrenka. Russian units are advancing in its southern part, already controlling about 80% of this territory. However, it has not yet been possible to wade across the small Balkana-Levak River and reach the northern part. At the moment, there is no reliable visual confirmation of advancement to this settlement, but military analysts point to activity in this area. On the Zaporizhia direction, fighting continues for Bagayavlenka. It is reported that on the morning of October 30th, Russian troops managed to occupy the northern parts of the village. This data is confirmed by the footage showing Russian soldiers hoisting two flags on the northwestern outskirts of Bagayavlenka. The Russian Defense Ministry also confirmed the establishment of full control over the area. These successes, according to experts, can be important from a tactical point of view, as they allow the Russian army to improve its strategic position in this direction. Not far from Bagayavlenka, Russian troops also advanced in Katarinivka. After fierce fighting and the publication of video footage, the Russian Defense Ministry confirmed control over the central part of the settlement. This creates an opportunity for a further offensive on Elizavetovka, which will allow the Russian army to strengthen its positions and create additional lines of defense in the future. In the area of Kurakov, where the most intense fighting is taking place, an attempted offensive by the Russian army in the eastern part of the city is being recorded. According to information from pro-Ukrainian and pro-Russian sources, Ukrainian troops tried to counterattack with a Leopard tank, but it was destroyed. These events confirm that the front line in the area continues to be unstable and changes periodically. In the Toretsk, Chasovyarsk, and Seversk directions, no significant changes have been recorded at the moment, but there is activity in the South Kupnoye direction. It is noted that Russian troops are gradually moving towards the northern outskirts of Toretskoye and Kruglyakivka, consolidating their influence in these areas. If the trend continues, Russian troops will be able to expand their positions and create more favorable conditions for control in these directions. There is also news from the Suzhin direction, where Russian units are striking AFU positions near Darin and Mykolaiv Darina. It is not excluded that active assault actions with the participation of foreign units will begin in the near future. Many military analysts predict that the actions of the Russian army may be aimed at creating the so-called Kurakov cauldron, encirclement of the AFU grouping in the south of Ukraine. If the Russian troops manage to consolidate their positions in such key points, as Yasnaya Polyana, Katarinivka, and Novukrainka. It will create prerequisites for a further offensive to the north, in the direction of the settlements of Razliv and Constantinople. If this operation is successful, Russian troops will be able to significantly weaken the Ukrainian defense by disrupting supply lines and encircling large AFU groups in the area. Against this background, experts emphasize that the Russian army is actively using the tactics of gradual leveling of the front line, as well as the tactics of small steps, which allows it not only to consolidate the occupied positions, but also to minimize losses. In the long term, this may lead to the formation of the southern base of the so-called Kurakov Cauldron, which is likely to become the main target of Russian troops in the area. Military operations in Ukraine remain highly intense by the end of October 2024, with the Russian army demonstrating strategic persistence in aligning the front line in the southern and eastern directions. The advance in key directions and the gradual encirclement of the AFU in the Kurakov area indicate the possibility of creating an operational encirclement and further strengthening the positions of the Russian forces. Experts note that the coming weeks may become decisive for the formation of the Kurakov Cauldron and ensuring a further offensive against Ukrainian positions. On October 30th, 2024, Russian armed forces made significant advances on Ukraine's southwestern borders. According to recent reports, several populated areas have come under their control, including Shakhtarsky, Yasnaya Polyana, and Kurakovo. Advances in these areas indicate a shift in positions and control over key logistical routes. In the Kurakovo direction, Russian forces have consolidated their positions in Shakhtarskoye and Yasnaya Polyana, control over which is confirmed by geomaterials. Russian assault units are advancing east of Shakhtarskoye, taking up positions on the outermost street, which is also documented in the photographic materials. In Yasnaya Polyana, Russian servicemen have planted a flag, indicating full control over the western part of the settlement. Ukrainian sources also report that Novukrainka has come under the control of Russian troops. This section of the front reflects one of the largest territorial movements in the last 6 months. According to current information, Russian units are advancing towards the settlements of Constantinople and Razliv, where fortifications are virtually non-existent, which could allow the SMRF to cut the supply route to Kurakovo. In Kurakovo, Russian forces are actively advancing on the city, establishing control over several strategic points. Positions on the dumps of mine number 42 allow them to keep one of the supply roads under fire, leaving the only road to the south for Ukrainian forces. Events on the front continue to be tense. Russian troops, having seized control of key positions, are expanding their line of defense. In turn, these actions may affect the supply of Ukrainian troops in these regions. The confrontation in areas such as the Centralnaya mine demonstrates the complexity and duration of the fighting. The use of Solntsepek systems by the Russian side indicates a shift to more aggressive methods of combat aimed at destroying fortified areas. However, Ukrainian forces continue to resist, holding off attacks in some areas. In areas such as Kupianskoye, Russian attacks were successfully repulsed, which may indicate a high level of preparation of Ukrainian troops for the defense of key positions. The fighting in the Ugledar and Kupiansk directions remains one of the most intense, and Russian troops continue to try to establish control over strategically important points. The ongoing fighting and the Russian army's advance indicate the long-term and unstable nature of the conflict, where any change in position can have a serious impact on further developments. And that's all, dear friends. We remind you that we condemn any violence in the world and call on all parties to immediately begin negotiations and resolve all issues diplomatically. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel, like it, and all the best to you.